Welcome back. Summer is winding down. Well, I suppose that depends where you live. In Florida, the weather sure doesn't seem like that. It is hot as all get out. But when this episode airs, my girls will officially be back in school for the next school year. So, in that way, it does feel like it's winding down, and I cannot wait till it cools off a little bit. Now, today, I'm going to talk about something that most women with anxiety don't consciously realize or think about. Anxiety isn't just something that you feel, it's something that shapes probably the vast majority of decisions that you make, at least some of them, from what you say yes to what you avoid, to the way that you show up at work or the way that you show up in relationships. Anxiety, sort of like a person who controls a puppet. I forget what they're called. Is it ventriloquist? That name went from my mind for a second, but anxiety is sort of like that, or controls the strings behind the scenes. And when you don't see it for what it is, you can end up living a life that doesn't feel like yours. Or later, where you look back and you're like, I wish I would have gotten the support that I wanted, that I needed 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 10 years ago. I hear it all the time. In fact, I was just on a call with a new client who joined Academy VIP, and she said, I wish I would have gotten this help decades ago. I don't want that to be you. I don't want you to wait any longer. So let's go ahead and dive in and explore hidden ways that anxiety might be shaping a great deal of your choices, and how to start making decisions from a place of safety that you are in control of and trust instead. Now, first one is saying yes when you mean no. This is one of the most common patterns that I see. You say yes, whether it's the extra project, to the favor, to the family event, to the thing that you do not really have the bandwidth for, not because you want to, but because you're anxious about what might happen if you say no. Will they be disappointed? Will they be upset? Will they think less of me? And so instead of honoring your limits, you override them. And the decision is based truly in fear of disapproval. And really, until you overcome that fear, it will dictate your life. Number 2 is over preparing and over explaining. Anxiety craves control. And if you struggle with anxiety, that probably hit home. And in many cases, it gives a sense of false control. So when you feel uncertain, your brain might and likely does go into overdrive, triple checking the email before you send it, rehearsing what you want to say 10 times before you interact with somebody or before a meeting at work, writing long paragraphs to justify a boundary that you want to set, and on and on. I trust that if this is you, you know how it's been showing up. It doesn't have to be in relation to work. It absolutely can be. And for many of you, it shows up there and other places. You're not preparing because you want to deep down. You're choosing to prepare because your nervous system doesn't trust that you will be safe if you don't. And that's wrong, meaning your nervous system doesn't have it right. But that's what the fear is. And that's the pattern that's been happening. So this constant overfunctioning, it can come across as, I'm just responsible on the surface. I certainly resonate with that being the way that I would show up in the past, but underneath it, it's fueled by fear of messing up, of being judged, or not being enough, not being good enough. And until you heal and change the way that you see yourself, those fears will dictate your life. Number 3, avoiding opportunities that you actually want. And this one can be sneaky. Maybe you tell yourself, oh, I don't have time. It's not the right season. I'll do it later. But really, this is just anxiety disguised as logic. Now, I'm going to put a caveat. I know that sometimes it really is not the right season. I get that. I'm saying if this is a pattern that you have, not a one off instance. And so, if you look in the mirror and you take accountability there, you'll know if I'm talking to you or if it truly is a single season where you don't have the capacity for something. This anxiety is disguised as logic, but it's truly a fear of failure, a fear of being seen, a fear of leaving your comfort zone. So, what do? You, for example, may avoid the new job or the relationship or the invite to get together or the creative project. And you might call it practical. I'm just being practical, but it's not practicality, it's protection. And until you see the fear that is at the heart of it, it will dictate your life. Number 4 is making decisions in order to keep the peace. So ever make a choice not because it's right for you, but because it won't rock the boat with somebody. If you say no, I am going to assume that you're lying to me. I'm just teasing you. But truly, or you've done like a great amount of healing work and you're not human. So if you've ever made a choice because it is basically not to rock the boat with somebody versus because it's right for you. Maybe it's going along with what your partner wants or biting your tongue to keep everyone comfortable or choosing the easiest path, even if it's not what you want deep down, even if it's not what your soul is begging you to do. This is anxiety convincing you that peace or harmony equals safety. Here's the problem. When you avoid temporary discomfort, you often create long-term resentment and unintentionally keep yourself stuck. Number 5, ignoring your gut because fear is louder. I mean, let's face it, fear is loud. And when you're stuck in anxiety, fear drowns out your intuition. I've had this experience so many times. And I know if you sit and think about that for a moment, you have too. Your body or your soul, there might be a part of you that whispers, this doesn't feel right. This relationship doesn't feel safe. This isn't what I want, etc. But fear might be screaming, don't mess it up. What are they going to think about you? Or maybe even you can't handle it if it goes wrong. So you ignore yourself. How many times have you done this? How many times? And where else does it show up in your life? Because often our patterns are scattered in so many different areas in our lives. And we tend not to even see it. And it takes somebody holding up a mirror to recognize that. When you abandon your inner knowing or your intuition because fear feels more urgent than trust, that is going to dictate your life until you embody the truth that fear is like a friend who gives terrible advice. It will continue to rule everything for you. And every time you choose to allow anxiety to make your decisions for you, it actually reinforces that you cannot trust yourself. I really want to emphasize that. You are responsible for breaking this pattern if you want to feel better. And every time that you choose to allow anxiety to make your decisions for you, it reinforces the belief that you cannot trust yourself. Trust is the opposite of anxiety. And I don't think anyone I've talked to that is not in the same space that I am recognizes that. People tend to think that calm is the opposite of anxiety. We're not going for calm. We're going for trust. And you get calm as a result of trust. If you've been trying to manage everyone else's emotions, if you've been trying to avoid discomfort, if you've been over functioning to prove your worth, then you have been living reactively instead of proactively. And that's not going to get you to create a life that feels aligned with who you are at your core. The truth is that anxiety is loud, but there is a part of you that is wiser than your fear. And I know that without a shadow of a doubt. And if you're listening and you feel unsure, you're like, Steph, this sounds good, but literally you don't know who I am. You don't know anything about my life. I know that. I recognize that, but I promise you there's a part of you that is wiser than your fear. You just have to listen to her. And that's why anyone who comes inside of Brave Academy or works with me one-on-one starts with regulating their nervous system. We recalibrate their nervous system so they can reconnect with themselves again. Plus, there's a million other benefits. That's for another episode, though. So, what do I want you to do? I know there's a lot here. I want you just to start with taking small steps to break the pattern. Number one, pause before you decide, even if it's 10 seconds. Pause and ask yourself, is this choice coming from fear or intuition? Is this coming from anxiety and obligation or alignment? Is this what I want? Funny story, but of course I'll leave out her name just in case. But I hosted, I think it was last year, someone who had helped with bringing in the lunch. You know, we do order lunch so we don't have to go out. And the delivery driver came and it was pouring, much like it's pouring right now, actually. And she just ran out into the rain so fast without even thinking, and came back and she was drenched, just completely soaked, looked like she had literally jumped to the bottom of a pool. And it was a perfect opportunity to hold up a mirror for her and ask her, would you have done this if you weren't making a choice out of fear or obligation? And where else does this show up in your life? And if you had paused for 10 seconds, what would have changed for you? Even though it was a relatively small thing, it ended up being a big moment, I guess we'll say, that shifted how she showed up from that point forward. She started pausing more, even for just 5 or 10 seconds, started choosing to live more in alignment rather than making choices out of obligation or out of fear or out of anxiety. And it was really beautiful. It's been really beautiful to witness. Now, okay, first one is pause before you decide. Second one is check your why. Are you saying yes in order to avoid guilt? Are you over preparing in order to avoid feeling judged by somebody? Are you trying to keep the peace in order to avoid conflict? Okay. Ask yourself those questions. Obviously, those are not the only ones to ask, but those are a few that you can ask yourself. And 3, regulate yourself first. Decide second. Ground your body, breathe, remind yourself that you're safe, and then choose. Obviously, for an example like the one with running into the rain that I just gave a minute ago, there wasn't really a need to ground her body and breathe first because this was a small example. And it was just implementing step 1 where she asked herself, she paused long enough, and then going into 2 and asking herself, is this coming from obligation or anxiety? That was enough. And that is likely going to give you some shifts right away. Now, if this episode is hitting home, here's what I want you to know. You are not broken for making fear-based decisions. You may be sitting with this thinking, oh my gosh, truly the vast majority of my decisions have been made from fear. Your brain and your body were doing what they could to keep you safe, what they knew to keep you safe. And you can learn to make choices from trust instead of anxiety. Probably a lot easier than you think. And that's exactly what I teach inside of my free class, How to Break Free from Anxiety and Panic for Good. And in that class, I'll walk you through a 4-step process that has helped countless women and men join as well, recalibrate their nervous systems and finally trust themselves again, even after years of being stuck in survival mode. You can register at www.brave-method.com/anxiety, and I will put that in the show notes for you so you can just click it. Until next time, take the brave step. You've got this.